Hi, and welcome to Insider Access for the Burnt Out Professional. I'm Donna Snyder, the founder of Marikai Coaching Services and host of Insider Access. Here we talk about what's happening in the professional world right now, why it feels so weird, so frustrating, and frankly, broken. If you're job hunting, hiring, or just wondering what the hell is going on out there, this one's for you. If you yourself are a burnt out professional or enjoy this type of content, please consider becoming a follower and subscriber of Insider Access wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss important Marikai Coaching Services content. Today, I'm joined by Krista Pelfrey, talent strategy leader for a national organization, author of the Infinite Mix Journal. We'll include a link so you can buy it, and someone I've worked with and consider a dear friend. And we'll be discussing all things team dynamics today. Before we get into our conversation, just a quick announcement before we begin. Our new and improved website, marikaicoachingservices.com, has recently launched. There you can find professional coaching services, in addition to links to the podcast and various platforms, our social media accounts, blog, newsletter, and much more. So head on over to marikaicoachingservices.com today to learn more about seasoned professional coaching for individuals and companies. That's MERAKI coachingservices.com. All of that to say, thank you so much for joining Insider Access, Krista. Could you please introduce yourself for anyone who doesn't know you?
Yes, thank you so much for having me today, Donna. It's great to see you as always. Like you said, talent strategy leader for a national organization by day. I guess also what I share in common with you two is mom of two boys. Well, and you've got three, but yes, a little bit of street credit. I feel like for our resiliency, right? With our
Definitely.
but no, I authored the Infinite Mix Journal recently, and I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball in my introduction because I do want to take a minute to thank you for what you've helped me with in terms of introducing me to the world of assessment data and using that as part of team dynamics and just really helping shape where I've been able to get to and where I'm looking to go with my own career. So thank you for all of the knowledge that you've shared and for introducing me to so many of these powerful tools, both from I'll say a self-leader standpoint, right? Being able to really coach and lead myself, but also to be able to influence teams like I do day to day. So thank you. I appreciate you.
Awesome. Thank you. I think I'm blushing. That doesn't happen very often. Thank you. It's been such a pleasure. I think it's been about 8 years. Is that about right? That since we first started working
Sounds
together?
right.
So
I think that's
it's,
right. Yes, it's been, yeah.
it feels like I've known you forever, but either way, and I mean that in the best possible way. But yeah, and I think we started our journey in a lot of what we're going to talk about today, even more recently than that, but in just a very short period of time, we have so much to talk about related to this. So I'm excited. Thank you very much for being here. So I think on that note, this is a good place to just kind of explain, a lot of what Krista and I will be talking about today is team coaching that we've done with a number of different organizations in different industries, different sectors, different sizes of teams. And we've utilized the Hogan assessment in this practice. And in each of these scenarios, number one, I want to call out that there are privacy protections around this. So people are guaranteed to remain anonymous. So we won't be, calling out names, even names of organizations, just to protect the privacy of the folks who participated. But on that note, I think we also should talk a little bit about Hogan assessments in general, just in case people aren't familiar with it. So I think I'd love to kind of start with you, Krista. Let's talk about some insights from the Hogan assessment that highlight how different personality types impact team dynamics. And what have been some of the most compelling dynamics that have stood out to you?
Yeah, it's a great question because it's one of those assessments that is very adaptable and agile depending on what you're using it for, right? But it's also consistent so that you have that language to be able to use, whether it's for hiring practices, whether it's for team dynamics, which we're diving deep into today. But I do feel like one of the most compelling things about the Hogan assessment is there's this piece of instead of prescribing, right, this
Mhm.
data to someone or a team, it's predictable data. And so you're not saying this is exactly how something might happen within the team or with an individual, but it's compelling data to say, wow, if we're able to predict maybe some of the behaviors that happen either day to day or under stress, under pressure,
Mhm.
what does that help us be proactive about as a
Mhm.
team, as individuals?
Mhm.
And so I feel like it's just that holistic view that it gives, right?
Yes.
That's so compelling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that was an excellent explanation. And I think, to break it down just even a little more simply, for anyone who's never heard of it, doesn't have any idea what we're talking about, the Hogan assessment really looks at both, we call it the bright side, the dark side, and values of an individual. And Hogan is less about what we think of ourselves, and it is more about how other people are likely to perceive you. And everyone has strengths, weaknesses, every single one of us. This isn't like about mental health or or the opposite of that. So we all have things that can potentially derail our careers, derail our relationships. And really the kind of the best practice is using what you learn about yourself or your teammates or whomever, in a way to sort of self manage, and then also look out for pitfalls, things that could trip you up either individually or as a team. Does that sound, did I do that well there, you think?
That was awesome, Donna. I feel like you hit on something so important too, is it's that reputational data, right? It's exactly
Hmm.
what you described. It's that data that you can pull from this assessment where so many assessments look at it from, I'll say like inside out, right? Who we think we
Hmm.
are, but being able to
Hmm.
apply the reputational side and right, for those that don't know Hogan, to get that understanding of this is likely how you're perceived in the
Hmm.
workplace, it's powerful in so many
Yes.
ways. So, yeah.
Yes. So, and I think a few real world examples are usually kind of helpful. And
Mhm.
so I'll bust myself first. But so my highest derailer score is in what's called mischievous. And as with anything, there are positives and there are negatives to any one of these scores, at any level or place on the scale. Mischievous, in its at its best, is they're described as people who can be very charming, very warm, very comfortable taking risks. At their worst, when we are not being managed or managing ourselves, maybe overly tired or overly stressed, we tend to be very impulsive. And because there's sort of that unserious element to it, like I'm not being super serious, someone who is very low mischievous can then view someone high mischievous as untrustworthy, that charm starts to feel a little bit disingenuous, or like you're manipulating. And sometimes truly that is part of it. Some high mischievous folks are also fairly high in manipulation, and will manipulate people, that if to get kind of what they're at their goal. So Krista, you and I have talked a number of times, also about, to me, I like to describe it as an orchestra. And
Yes.
and if you think about everyone's scores, there are just some sounds or scores that are a little more loud and a little more obvious than others. And it's really that combination of all of them that truly brings out the person that you encounter. Um,
Yes.
so now we're going to talk about what happens when you put a bunch of those all together,
With the
because it can
teams.
get really
Yes.
interesting.
Well, and Donna, I mean, that orchestra example, because I remember you using that in a team setting, and it's even, individual profiles, right? Being so different too.
Mhm.
So I love that orchestra visual, because it's like, if you've got, I'm not a music person, I'm a sports person, but I'm going with it because I see it. But if you've got all violas in the room, right, you don't get the full sound. And
Yes.
so it's that mix of profiles too, which yeah, it just can be,
Yeah.
it can really bring that team to life. So
Yes. Well, and there
yes.
there are positives and there are negatives,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
so I think leading right into that, I'll just use the team that you and I were last part of together. And this was a very people facing team. Every piece of this team, was facing outward, dealing with people all day long. For the most part, internal employees, which was our customer base.
Hmm.
Um, and when we did this assessment with the entire team, and our team went through a lot of changes. But, and it grew by the end there, there were like 21 people under the same sort of umbrella. But it was fascinating to me to look at the scores of the entire team as a whole. And one of the things that stood out to me, and you can talk about what stood out to you, but this was a team of all very high interpersonal sensitivity. And so interpersonal sensitivity is about reading other people, being very, good at sort of, typically the people who are going to know if something's off in the room. Tend to really avoid conflict, really like to keep peace. And I think because of that, we recognized at one point, if we've got a whole bunch of people who don't want to argue with each other or disagree, we've got to bring in some outside perspectives so
Right.
that we get some
Some healthy
holes poked.
conflict, right? So
Exactly.
right.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. So, what else can you? I want to give you a chance to talk about something that you've seen.
Well, no, I mean, even just along that same line too, there's, I mean, that I from the outside looking in, right? When I was newer to Hogan, because I was training on it, right? Alongside of
Mhm,
you, you're teaching yours. I was thinking that that was, to your point, such a strength, and it did come out as a strength in so many ways with our team, right? It was that
mhm,
kind of harmonious feel. We wanted to make sure that people felt included and accepted and
mhm,
heard, and all of these needs that humans have, right?
mhm,
And then on the other side of it, there's really healthy conflict that can take place in the workplace. And to your point, when you bring in somebody that maybe has that different viewpoint, or isn't afraid to speak up and poke some extra holes in things, it helps us move forward as a team. And I think we saw that quickly as you were bringing together, multiple teams
mhm.
within one when we were working together. And yeah, there was so many healthy conversations that I feel like stemmed from that, instead of just saying, "Yeah, we agree. We don't wanna
Mhm.
rock any boats," or anything like that. It was really powerful conversations to say, "Okay, we can disagree because we care about each other, because we wanna move the team forward." I feel like that piece of understanding our blind spot, of all having um, a similar piece of the Hogan profile, right? We were able to connect on and actually
Mhm.
articulate to one another, because without that data, it's hard to pinpoint and say, what could this be? What could be, um, pointing us in this direction, or making us feel this way as a team?
Mhm.
So it's powerful.
Mhm. Yes, and learning how to have safe conflict,
Yes.
right? And it's not all negative. It's a certain amount of that is important and necessary. Um, and even from like a psychological safety perspective, the
Mhm.
opposite of psychological safety isn't comfort,
Right.
right? It's the ability to disagree without feeling like you're going to be harpooned from across the room or something.
Yes. Right.
So,
Exactly.
yes, yes. So let's dig in to some of what we did. You and I have seen firsthand some of the effects and some of the strategies for dealing with a team that's too one-dimensional beyond our own. And how
Mhm.
can leaders leverage their understanding of these dynamics to enhance collaboration and minimize conflict?
Yeah, and Donna, to that point too, I mean, and we will, right, you're right, expand outside of our team, but I think realizing that we were all very similar with that one
Mhm,
factor made us look so deeply into others too, to find
mhm,
those differences. I mean, that's the powerful piece of assessment data, and how to really work with that as part of teams, that you really helped show me too. And what I work on kind of day to day now is, how do you start to look at all of those differences that are coming out with individuals, and be able to again put like a common language to it, so that
mhm.
you're able to actually talk through it and have that level of communication, so that there's not the misunderstandings that could take place without some of that framework in place. um, and sorry, I just totally jumped back to the
That's okay.
last point, but
That's okay. That's all right.
had to call that out, because that was such a powerful piece of understanding. Okay, where are we similar, but then also our differences are what are really going to help us drive forward, and how do we
Mhm,
leverage different people within the team? We saw that with so many too that we
mhm.
that we worked with.
Mhm. I
So
mean, right down to, someone who, we may have been working on an issue that was not in their wheelhouse at all. But, just inviting people in to say, okay, what are we missing here? And getting a completely different perspective. Sometimes, that just, it would floor me sometimes. Like I never would have thought of that. That was amazing. And I think about one, and it was hilarious. One of the teams that we worked with that was in manufacturing, and they were they were dealing with very, very dangerous products, I
yes.
guess is a way to say
Yes.
it. And what a laugh we got, okay, so for anyone who's not familiar with Hogan, one of the things I talked about risk aversion already, but there's also some elements around dutiful and diligent. And
Mhm.
those are not the same. But they're sort of similar. But um, generally speaking, that is indicative of someone who pays very close attention to detail, is very precise, is very uncomfortable making decisions without all of the information that they feel like they need. Where, the flip side of that is, I've got a little bit of information. I'm going with this, and I'm going to run with it. And, we were showing like our team's scores, and you just kind of see these horrified looks on their faces.
That's so true. Their
Oh,
eyes got pretty big.
we're like, don't worry, we're not applying here. They're like, oh, thank God.
Right, because there's the rule following factors too, pretty low.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah. Our team motto was rules or suggestions.
That's right.
But yeah, and it's like, you on that team, and the president is sitting there going, oh my gosh, yeah, no, they have to be detail oriented. They have to, like, everyone here. And it's interesting, two perspectives I think about on this, is one, they were hiring that way without even intending to necessarily. They were fine. They were getting at that quality about people another way, interviewing, seeing them in other roles in the organization. But I think, in something like that, okay, where there's a lot of detail, it might be a little easier to snuff out, and I think when we talk about something like the dynamics on our team, it's more likely that I was in the people that I hired and not inherited. I think my tendency, you're a perfect example of this, is, there are lots of ways we're similar. And
Sure.
and and I think as a human being, as a hiring manager, your tendency is, I relate well to this person. It's very easy. We connect easily. You're reading my language and you're finishing my sentences, and we're on the same page here.
Right.
And it's a natural tendency to want to hire that way. But there can be a downside to that too.
Absolutely. There can be, because I think we even said it when we were in with this group too. If they had a team of us, right, you and I, our profiles, there would be some pretty major safety write-ups and
Safety
rules
issues,
broken
yes.
and safety issues. But no, it's what you're calling out, right? You're able to design the
Mhm.
team a different way instead of just manage to what you're used to or what you think may be the right fit. So you're
Mhm.
hitting on something so powerful.
Yeah, it's exciting
Yeah.
stuff.
Yes. I
So
feel like you used it a lot during oh, sorry, I just cut right
no,
in
please.
because I was so interested in how you were using it with bringing in a new leader of teams too.
Mhm.
Like, this is
Mhm.
where that piece of using the Hogan to understand, like, what you already know about the team and how
Mhm.
you would bring in a new leader of a team
Mhm.
was really powerful, and I saw it help them as leaders once they joined the organization, sit down with you or me, and we would coach them through it and almost give them a leg up to start with a new
Yeah,
team.
yeah. And
So,
I think not only have you and I seen it, but I think most people have seen, if you think about how a leader kind of sets the tone.
mhm,
And in most cases, and I, when we were doing executive searches, or, looking for, often executive team level leaders to come in, and take over a division or something, often if you, with really well established teams, the fear is frequently, okay, we want someone who's going to lead and make some positive change, but we don't want to disrupt this team so
mm,
badly that we lose
yes,
them, you know? And that's a
right.
very fine balance, very fine balance. And at times, I'm curious to see, if this is something you agree with or not, but I think there's also often an element of, um, particularly when, let's just say it this way, a leader's leaving who was toxic in some way.
Mm.
You've got people remaining who have honestly been traumatized,
Mm-hmm.
often left feeling very confused, and
Sure.
very unsure about what is this going to look like next. I'm not sure I can take much more of this, kind of a
Mm.
thing. Or the complete opposite, where a leader leaves that their team thought the world of them,
Right.
and the uncertainty in there. And in my mind, the selection of the person who's taking over either one of those extremes, or even not in an extreme scenario, is critical. It's critical.
It's critical. It's critical. Absolutely. And it makes the what is sometimes invisible when the leader is there, right? Once you pull that specific leader out of that team dynamic, out of that group, what's uncovered then, what becomes visible is, and then there you go. I keep talking back to the Hogan, but you layer in that data piece on top of it
Mhm.
to be able to put common language around what is missing, what was missing, what do we need. It's
Mhm.
yeah, it helps with that rebuild and that trust right off the bat
Mhm.
too. I mean, there's that layer of trust that comes into play when you have a common language with a leader and you're able to
Mhm.
articulate strengths, weaknesses, opportunities. What do I value? Do I understand my team's values? I mean,
Mhm.
that we've seen so many powerful cases of when it comes to new leader acclimation
Mhm.
into a team.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Powerful, powerful stuff.
Oh,
Uh,
we could geek out on
yeah.
data all day, couldn't we?
I
And
know, I
team.
know, I know. It's so exciting, but I mean, it's so impactful. I've seen teams, even, if you think about, a team, an executive team that's been together for a long time, and
Mm.
everyone believes they know each other really well. And we saw this in a few of the exercises that we did, where there's often someone has a moment of, oh my gosh, I had you all wrong.
Yes. To the point of tears, we saw.
Yes.
In a
Yes.
good way, in a light bulb moment way that brought so much emotion
Hmm.
to a group that, hasn't gone to that level before. Yes.
Hmm. Hmm. So can you
Mhm.
think of any examples that just stay with you?
Well, you set this up beautifully at the beginning. Uh, we do protect, right, the privacy of individuals, so I won't even say title, but it was a leader within the room, and I can picture us in the room after we went through going showing our current team, showing their current team, having some people share out what they learned through their individual coaching sessions,
Hmm.
with the Hogan. And I remember, one of the leaders speaking up, and as he was speaking up, got teary-eyed saying, "I I didn't realize that," and it had to do with, and help me with this because I know you'll remember this moment. I think it had to do with the amount of, like, recognition. He didn't hugely value recognition, and there were some people on his team that were so open about, "Sometimes I don't know if I'm doing a great job. I'm not sure how to give that recognition to others." What type of, like, there was this almost cultural shift in the room because you have
Hmm.
this leader that had this moment of, I didn't realize, and we weren't able to really articulate some of the needs and what made my team feel valued and where I'm missing as a leader because I know he wanted to show up in the best way possible. He had such
Yes.
that huge piece to his profile around, helping others and coaching and wanting to make sure
Hmm.
that the team dynamic was, really in alignment with one another.
And everyone
And
was
it
being
was
fed.
just yes, yes, that's a great way to put it. Right.
Mhm.
But you saw that it went from light bulb to almost emotional in a way that the amount of trust that was built in that room that day after a lot of them had worked together for a long time.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
it was beautiful. So,
Absolutely beautiful, and similarly, not talking titles or anything, it is surprising when you think about, how long people can know each other and not know pretty significant pieces of their personalities. And similarly, going through this process, we would also have debriefs with that person's leader, not give a lot of detail, not just, hey, I had this conversation. um, so they knew that it was happening. We were making progress going through. Yeah, I think you're already laughing. You know the example I'm going to use, I think.
I am.
Yeah, and I remember giving the manager of this person their debrief, and it was like, okay, well, here's the highlights. And one of the highlights was I was letting this person's leader know, this is someone who's very comfortable with risk. That man argued with me for like 15 minutes. I was wrong. You are wrong. You are wrong. There's no way. I've known this person for 20 years. No, it's the most risk averse person you've ever met. Okay. So I'm talking on the phone with that very person a little bit later in the day, about more people on the team, and just in conversation said, do you have anything fun planned for this weekend? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm going skydiving.
Love that.
Yeah, that's
The "I
that's
told you so"
not risk
moment. No.
averse behavior. Yeah, I felt very validated.
Yes.
Yes, yes, and so just that kind of the way, the magic in the way that it uncovers things,
Mm.
about people that you think you know really well, even, um, is there's magic in that. I really think that.
There really is, and even with such similar profiles, because I know there's let's just take you and I, for instance, right? There's
Mhm,
some major similarities across our profiles, and then there's some core differences, and even just in having your perspective on certain whatever it is, whether it was, you as my leader, you as my coach now, right? And just
mhm,
mentor and friend and all of that. Um, it just brings this I keep going back to this, but you're able to articulate so much better, like,
mhm,
what you're feeling in that moment or what strengths you bring to the table or what you need to feel valued at work. And then when you hear a different perspective too, and you hear a different take on either how different or how similar your leader, your teammates are, I don't know, there's
mhm,
like that sense of appreciation that follows too for one another. And you're able to pull on those pieces to really be able to create this it is beautiful, it's magic, it's this magic
mhm,
dynamic that happens.
mhm.
I know I often joke with you too, I've said this a few times where I wish I was somebody that could just carry a whiteboard around with me, right? And like draw what I'm thinking. I think in visuals. It's one of those
Mhm.
we share a little bit. You articulate things so well, and I appreciate you for that. Where this type of assessment, though, especially with individuals going into an interview or again, a new
Mhm.
leader going into a team, when you sit down with a Hogan coach, right? When you get to talk through and put actual language to,
Mhm.
wow, that's how I can explain what I'm working on or what I can bring value wise to a new
Or
team
what I need.
or what I need. That
Mhm.
piece, right? That's so hard for some individuals.
Mhm.
I'll put myself into that category to articulate because
Mhm.
you want to make sure you are showing what value you can bring, right? But there's also needs that you have And that
Mhm.
language around this type of assessment is that this assessment, I should say, is a tool that helps give you is just so beautiful. So,
Mhm. Well, and it's interesting. You just made me think of an example of another direct report. Again, not going to name names, but on our team, one of my direct reports, who didn't know why yet, but it was like during the Hogan debrief, I was explaining, okay, here's you, here's me, and he was like, okay, let's talk about what happens when we butt heads because we're going to. It's like, yes,
I
we are.
love that question. Yes.
Yes, we
Great.
are. And I'll tell you exactly where it's going to be. And it happened. But we
Mhm.
were prepared for it because we had the conversation, and it happened because I happen, one of my highest values is altruism. I
Mhm.
am 100% of the time, I think I scored 100, but like, the welfare of people, basically
Mhm.
helping others
Yes,
is my strongest value. And
that's
this
right.
was an employee who happened to be very low in altruism.
Mhm.
And, in a very high drive, very bold, very, absolutely wonderful at what they did, but that's exactly where we were gonna butt heads and where we did when I started pushing back because that's not good for the team, the people, okay, but from a strategic perspective, he's coming at me with,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but I don't care because that's not good for the people. But,
Mhm.
you can find common ground that way and think about the power of how much you can diffuse what could
Yes.
otherwise be a really stressful conversation, your blood pressure is rising, you're getting angry, you're, whatever.
Yes.
Knowing, okay, I understand why you're coming from that perspective.
Yes.
So let's talk
That
about it.
for sure, and you just made me think of another one too that you'll remember this moment in another team session that we did where somebody scored really high on recognition, and it's so interesting because it's how it relates to some of those other factors then within your
Mhm.
Hogan assessment. And we started talking about all the different types of recognition and how, well, you had uncovered even before I joined your team some other pieces and parts of recognition where you've got high level leaders that were all very low on recognition, and their
Mhm.
teams, what they were asking for on surveys and things like that is more recognition. And they're
Mhm.
thinking, that they just have to outline what are the job responsibilities, what are the KPIs, like let's go do it. And not asking what does my team need from a recognition standpoint because
Mhm.
that wasn't a core value. That's not something that motivates them day to day. And so it helps
Yep.
them be adaptable leaders. So go back to this other leader that opened up about, I'm not sure why I would have scored high on recognition. And I remember I had that conversation with you because when you saw my Hogan, it wasn't my highest one, but it's pretty high recognition. And I think I said the first thing I said to you seeing that was, I will hide under my desk if you put my name in lights or call me out in front, like
You did.
recognition makes me want to crawl under a desk. Um, but then as you uncover, it's one of those I value it because when our team would get called out for something great, or when it would be some type of like company award or something like that, like that is what lights me up. And we were kind of talking through that. And I remember that really quiet leader sitting off in the that's what I think too. He's like, "I can't wait to be" right? And he was just so lit up by the fact that, okay, there's
Mhm.
also like, there's variables to all of these. Like, context
Mhm.
is king too when it comes to a lot of these assessments. It's not to manipulate the data or anything like that, but it's the
Mm-mm.
human side of the data
Mhm.
that really brings it to life.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah,
Oh, magic.
lots
I'm
of
telling you, it's magic.
magic. That's it's magic in real life. Yes. Oh, that's great.
Oh, no,
Um,
it's, oh, these are, I mean, we could, I could go on forever with examples of this and just some of those magical moments, of the light bulbs going off. And man, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. Seriously.
Yes. Yes.
It's,
Can I ask
it's,
you a
it's,
question? Because I always love you
yes.
talking through this. But I feel like you learned so much about yourself from the Hogan too. Like that self-leadership that you always have like coached me on, coached so many others on. It's one of those, it's so powerful to set the stage to be a great either part of a team, influencer within a team, leader of a team, leader of an organization, whatever, phase of that. But from a self-leadership standpoint, I feel like you've shared so much with me about that. But I wanted to put you on the spot for a minute because it's powerful stuff of what you've learned about you using the Hogan too.
I like being put on the spot. Thanks. My high mischievous is going to kick in here.
I love it.
That's a fantastic question, and I love it. Oh man, have I learned a lot. Man, have I learned a lot. And I think the mischievous piece was a big one for me,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because I guess I never thought of it in terms of risk taking.
Mm.
But when I started reflecting back, I'm absolutely comfortable taking risks in like
Mhm.
all phases. Now, I don't want to go skydiving.
All right, we'll skip skydiving, but
Yeah, I'll skip the skydiving. But in a lot of different ways, and for me, a lot of the ways that it shows up, and it's that combination of things, right? It's parts, all of the ways that all of my other scores play into it. But it's most often it's saying the unpopular thing.
mm,
And willing to stick my neck out hoping that I can benefit someone else.
yes.
That's the risk, right?
Yeah.
And it's so automatic, that I never thought of it in those terms. But then the recognition, as I'm sitting there next to, I almost said the title, but I'm sitting there next to like someone, in this role that
Mhm.
is very data driven and black and white and very reserved personality. And I'm talking and I'm looking at them and I'm like, we were very good friends. So it was fine. But I was
Yes.
like, am I not making any sense? And he's like, oh no, you are. You sound like a nutbag, but you're making complete sense.
Oh,
So
that's
it's like
good.
that. Oh yeah, I have to reel that in when I'm not with other people who are, built the same way because
Sure.
they won't hear me otherwise.
Mhm.
And I'm not just talking to talk. This matters. And it's just a different
Yes.
perspective, you know. So that was a really, really big one for me. And I also I'm like zero dutiful or something like zero dutiful. And dutiful is about doing what you're told just because you're
Right.
told to. I don't do that. But
No. I think you're exactly right. It was definitely a 0 on that one. No. But with
so
respect too, I mean, you're able to self-coach that so well though too, because you're aware of it.
sure, sure. But also it's the big thing I think is that it gave me a way to say, you just telling me to do that
Mhm.
isn't going to do it. Can you give me some context behind this? Like,
Mhm.
can you, and it's not like I'm just a stubborn jerk. I
No,
mean, there might be,
not at all. Not
there
at
might be
all.
people who disagree, but, it's that, if you think about motivating me, motivating Donna, just telling me to do something it doesn't. And you know what, if I'm feeling good or whatever, I might do it. but
Yeah.
but I'm not going to be doing it with a lot of passion. Now if you explain to me why it's important and how what kind of impact it's going to have on people, or I'm all ears. I'm in. That's how
Yes.
that's how I'm bought in. But those are the two examples I think that stand out the most to
Yeah.
me. Now I'm going to flip it back
Oh,
on you. How about you?
oh gosh. I should have been ready for that. No, I will say, I think when you first see, I remember taking the assessment, and I'd taken a number of assessments prior to the Hogan, and there's good information out there, right, across the board. But when it's this whole reputational standpoint of how is it
Mhm.
actually impacting how people perceive you in the workplace? And it's that balance, right? It's like be who you are, be who you want to be, but also to your point, how is that impacting other people? How do they feel? We had a big team. I'm working with
Mhm.
a big team right now. I work with small teams. I mean, there is that team dynamic, that company-wide dynamic of how am I showing up and how does that impact people? And I think one of the things that stood out the most to me that I had received some coaching on in the past, but I wasn't able to articulate exactly how to almost like self coach with this is, I have high bold and high colorful as two of my derailers. So what that means is in periods of either high stress or when I'm not, managing myself effectively, right? Sometimes I will, and you get a whiteboard in front of me. It is going to be ideas for the next 5 years, and we are going to do this, that, and the other.
Yep.
And we want to run now. Like, no, we're not waiting. We're going to go do this now. And you can just, I have that tendency to, is it good to take action? Yes. Is it always good to run when you're taking action? No. It takes intentional um that intentionality behind it, right? And so that was really powerful, is to be able to not only look and say, all right, now there's data backing some of this that I'm working
Mhm.
on, that I've gotten coached on, and also how do I show up more thoughtful, right? When I'm working
Mhm.
with teams, when I'm working with leaders, because, eh, you know, there might be good ideas, there might be
Mhm.
suggestions, there might be things that I know to my core we need to do, but timing matters. The people around me and different perspectives matter. Am I checking in? That's a big piece, right? Of the bold. Am I actually
Mhm.
going to others to make sure that there are different perspectives brought in when we're deciding what's next? Because there's
Mhm.
major upstream, downstream effects that can rock a team, rock an organization, that could be blind spots of mine
Mhm.
or what, right? So that was really powerful. And I think the other one too is, I'll call myself out on this one. So on the values MVPI portion, one of my highest, and I always was fearful of talking about this, and I think some individuals is one of my highest was on. Oh, I'm losing that, but the compensation part, the financial piece.
Commerce.
Commerce, thank you. So the
Mhm.
commerce
Nope.
factor is one of my highest. Well, that to me, right when I saw my results, it stands out a little bit where it's like, whoa, like money is definitely not everything to me. But when I started mixing it with, yeah, like how much I want to impact people, and um, just some of my core values outside of work too, right? It's this, money providing options, worrying about the company's finances, because if the company is financially fit, then guess what happens to the people? There's opportunities, there's options. Like, what's the impact of all of that? But being able to actually like unpeel the layers of the onion to get to that and be able to actually articulate, yeah,
Mhm.
money matters to me in a lot of different ways
Mhm.
because of what it gives us as an organization. It allows us to do for our people. It allows me to do for my family. It allows the experiences, like all of these pieces and parts. I wasn't able to really do that before
Mhm.
seeing it and mixing it with these other data points. So
Mhm.
again, I guess it goes back to a lot of the self-coaching that you're able to do too once you really work on that understanding of the data, you get that coaching that you gave
Yes.
me, and it's just you move forward with a new confidence in being able to explain, here's the value I can bring, here's my expectations, and here's what I'm still learning, here's what I'm still developing in. So
Mhm. Mhm. No, that's
yeah,
excellent, excellent, and it's just useful in a million different ways. It's useful in a million different
it
ways,
is.
and
It truly is. Yes.
yes, and in that look of horror, when people see their flash report because it it doesn't look like you can't. It costs a lot of money to learn how to interpret these things. Come on, let's be honest.
Yes.
But people, it never fails. Like, will see their report, and it's like, why is there so much red? Like, why is there so like, what does this mean? And
Yeah.
start trying to and I just remember every time I would send one of those out, my whole
Every
email
time.
was like, please don't try to figure this out before we meet. Like, and I would intentionally not send them until like, a
An
short
hour
time
before.
before. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
because just people would freak out about it. It's like, don't do that to yourself. Um,
Yes.
but it's also, I did think of one additional example just very quickly, and it was something that really stuck with me. Is as much as the zero dutiful, I'm not going to do something just because you tell me to do. However, if you give me a challenge with zero instructions, zero context, zero
Mm.
whatever, that's exciting. And I will run with
Yes.
that. Like, okay, and just let me go and I will go figure it out. And so because that is so like that's exactly how I like to operate, right? That's my preference. That
Mhm.
was how I was leading. And then
Yeah.
had someone else that was a direct report come to me and say, "Oh my gosh, you're making me crazy. Can you please tell me? I need more details. When is this due? When is this?" I'm like, "What?" It was like the best thing ever. I said, "Here, go figure this thing out."
Oh, I
Uh,
remember this. Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yes. And man, and so just the being that, that, ooh, I have to be really aware that
Mm.
of the, and I that was right around the time that we went through the teams. And then it became kind of clear, like, okay, now I know who needs the information, the details, and who, like Krista, wants to just run with it. Like with
Right.
her whiteboard, dragging her big giant whiteboard down the hall.
Yes. But you were so thoughtful with that. Like, I actually remember kind of that shift with the team and uh certain calendar invites that would go out used to be like, "Hey, we're just jumping on a quick meeting," and it transitioned to based on who we're meeting with, and here's the context behind why we're meeting. You don't have to call and ask 52 questions ahead of time. I'm gonna be proactive and give them to you.
Yes, yes, because it would freak people out, and it
It would.
never would occur to me that that was gonna freak anybody out. I'm like, "No, we're just like, we just need a huddle real quick, and it's not a big
Right.
deal." Like, but yeah, great point, great point. All right, well, Krista, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's all of the time that we
Thank
have.
you.
A sincere thank you to the operations, research, and production team, the brains behind the scenes, because they truly are. Don't forget to grab the Infinite Mix Journal. Fantastic. Krista did a
Thank
wonderful
you.
job on this. I've given it as gifts to several people who've then purchase them for other people. It's wonderful. You won't regret it. We'll have to have
Thank
you
you.
back sometime, Krista, for sure, if you're willing.
Yeah, I would love
Um,
that. Absolutely.
excellent. Absolutely good. We'll be back next month with a new episode of Insider Access. So please tune in and subscribe so you don't miss it.